we posted on YouTube. I've talked about that before. Some of you guys said you've seen it, watched it, and if you haven't, continue to follow the YouTube channel. All right, Rick, it's on you. Thank you.
Man. Appreciate it. Hey guys, what's going on?
Morning.
Thanks for coming out today. I appreciate it. I'm a little nervous because, as you'll see, I'm kind of try to share a story about how bad of a wrestler I am. And so I really respect what you guys do, and I've always looked up to the work that you guys do, and certainly the results that you guys achieve. So thank you guys, first of all, not just for coming, but for helping to inspire us lessers who look up to you guys through the years, because you guys really do have a great effect on a lot of people throughout the country, both from kids up to adults and all that. So I'm really excited to share with you guys a little bit of a story of a journey that I've been on for the last couple of years, pursuing some of the dreams that I've been doing, building from what I learned in wrestling and trying to apply that actually to outer space. And so I haven't gotten there yet, so just to be clear, I'm not really an astronaut, just a pretend one. And so it's been kind of a cool ride, and I'll talk about some different missions that I have been a part of, namely the ones that are mentioned down here. You'll see me refer to something called HERA, which is short for Human Exploration Research Analog. And so analog is a word I use a lot today because it basically means simulation or practice. So analogy, it's basically the same idea. So it's something that we can mimic spaceflight with so that we can understand things scientifically before we go. So just like we practice before we compete, we want to do the same things to make sure that we get the job done, whether it be on Moon, Mars, those kind of things. And then another one you'll see me refer to called NEEMO, which is short for the NASA Extreme Environment Mission Operations, which is a really cool study I just came back from about 2 weeks ago in the Florida Keys, where I was actually a scientist this time instead of a lab rat inside the mission. And this time we were studying astronaut cognition in the world's only undersea laboratory, where astronauts live for a week or two in about 60 to 100 feet down underwater, and it's pretty cool. So that's a little bit what I want to share with you guys about some of the lessons that I learned, both being a crew member in those experiences, but also being a scientist on the top side. So if for any time you guys have questions, just hit me up, slow me down, throw me out, whatever you need. If it's not clear on the screen or if it's reflecting, feel free to kill the lights. Make yourselves comfortable. So,
Hey, I think the lights should stay on because people might fall asleep. So, not because you just because you're tired.
Okay.
Not because you just because you're tired. Leave them on. Leave them on.
Okay. So, That's all right. So my job regularly is I'm a college professor at Cal State San Bernardino. So I'm used to people falling asleep on me all the time, and so don't feel bad. You're not going to be judged. But so anyways, a little bit of an introduction of me. That is, I usually don't put these in the talks because I talk to scientists or astronauts or other people. But being the wrestling community, I'll share with you guys kind of the commonalities of maybe some steps that we've taken together. So sort of introducing my journey from USA Wrestling to NASA has been kind of an interesting run. I started all the way back in 1993 wrestling in Illinois. I know we have a lot of Illinois people here. So land of Lincoln, 1993. I started as a huge dork. I was a science nerd. Had science arms very clearly. And if you can't see, those are the gigantic circular glasses I have on the mat going to wrestle with a leather brute headgear. So, straight OG. And so I was on the Arlington Cardinals, IKWF for any of you Illinois guys in the room. Yeah, so wrestled for Hersey High School in Arlington Heights for 2 years, and then transferred to the Dagestan of America, which is New Jersey. And so I wrestled there at Southern Regional High School a few years before Frank Molinaro graduated there, and then right at the same time that Kevin Hoy wrestled there. Some of you guys Air Force guys might know him. I think he wrestled Macham in the finals a couple years. But I was a D3 walk-on, JV nobody at the College of New Jersey, which is a Division III school. And one of the best parts about it is we got to beat up on other JV or other D3 schools coached by people like Momir. And And so you guys know Momir, he coached Montclair State, so we had a nice little rivalry, and that was pretty fun. So I was a D3 walk-on there. Never thought I'd be wrestling in college because I never believed in myself that much to think I was that good, because I wasn't. But built up to that level and had a lot of fun and learned a lot of things that ended up helping me throughout the career, building to where we did both scientifically, and then of course trying to do this whole space gig. So I had dreams at that point of building from what I started off as a scientist. I got a degree in psychology, and let's see here. Right about that time, I was starting to think about plans for after graduation, and I started thinking about the space program because I saw an article in USA Wrestling Magazine about a wrestler from Cornell who addressed the World Championships for freestyle at the time from the International Space Station as an astronaut. His name was Ed Liu. And so I became re-inspired to pursue that dream by seeing what USA Wrestling was sharing about the World Championships. So kind of connecting, the science side with the athletic side in ways that most people probably never think that it's going to connect. But it does. And so it's hard to see that sometimes maybe as athletes. But what you guys really do does inspire a lot of people in weird ways that we never really expect. So it's had that effect on me. I started getting excited, started getting good at wrestling. Was training for the, it's my junior year, to try to break in the lineup, and got smashed by a car at about 50 miles an hour. That was the bike that was left of it. You can see it's kind of mangled. And I was a lot more mangled than that. I thought I was going to be dead. They picked me up off the side of the road. Actually, I picked myself up. But took a pretty good hit. Thought I was going to be dead. And it turned out it wasn't. Sweet. It was, so I was actually coming back from wrestling practice in October. It was dark. It was rainy. And I was just about in front of my wrestling team's house. Like, I was going home. I was like 3 houses away. I get smashed by a car crossing the road. And got a shot of adrenaline. Picked up back across the street. Collapsed on the side. The meat wagon came to get me, and everyone was kind of like, weird, what happened to this dude? Because I'm laughing. They're like, what are you laughing about? Like, my wrestling buddies are basically across the street. Once they find this out, they're going to laugh their ass off. I just got hit by a car. And so they think I'm delirious because, you're kind of in shock. Everything's in pain, but it's numb. And I'm sitting there in the ambulance going, holy crap, like, I'm going to be paralyzed because I can't feel my legs. I can't do anything. The guy I was beating that day in practice went on to make All-American, and it's like crap. But that momentary sense of bad attitude I had, crap, I can't walk or wrestle or whatever. I started laughing in the ambulance, going I'm alive, man. This is awesome. I'm like, if God meant for me to live the rest of my life in a wheelchair, this is awesome. I'm the best damn wheelchair person around. We're going to learn some tricks. We're going to do something. This is awesome, right? So I got excited. Turns out, tore my MCL, my meniscus. Came back, wrestled again 30 days later. Way too early. Tore it all again, and stayed as a D3 nobody. So from that though, it kind of got me back on the science track. Kept wrestling, but ended up getting into coaching. So there was a high school in New Jersey that didn't exist. It just founded that year, and I never believed in myself well enough to think I could ever coach anything because I didn't think I was very good. I didn't know anything about wrestling. But my coach ended up dying on the day they told me that it was opening for a job, and I kind of felt compelled to continue that legacy, and I thought I had 1 year before I went to grad school where I could maybe do this dream of being a coach, and it was a big deal for me because I didn't think I was very good at wrestling. So took the job at Robbinsville High School. It's right outside of Trenton and Princeton. Coached the kids up. We had 4 guys, and I took that as a chance to sort of carpe diem and sort of live in the moment and say, I'm never going to have this chance again. How would I do it? And so when every fork in the road as a coach came up, you have to make lots of decisions about how do you handle an athlete, how do you handle a situation. I always took the risk that said, I'm not building for the future. We have 1 day, we have 1 year, this is it. And we went hard, we went home, and the guys, we went awesome. They won tournament championships as freshmen, and I kind of took that attitude of, we're not going to have another second chance. So this is it, live in the moment, this is our time, and went to graduate school. I coached for a little bit in the NWCA at the Florida Atlantic University for a year, and that was really cool. Ended up continuing with science because I knew I wanted to have bigger dreams beyond that world, and I should say I also spent 1 season as the assistant coach for Team New Jersey, which I wanted to mention because that was, I think, the high school year I recruited Molinaro, and I think I coached one practice with Molinaro and Jordan Burroughs. But I mean, I don't like to take credit for their success, but you know,
You were a part of the show.
anyways, went to Davis, got my PhD in neuroscience, and got into triathlons as basically rehab for my shoulders, rehab for my knees, because I was pretty banged up from being a nobody, getting crap kicked out of you as a backup, and that was pretty cool. At 2008, I got really inspired to continue pursuing the dream of applying for the astronaut program because of actually a Greco wrestler. Jake Deichler won the Olympic trials in 2008. He was what, all of 11 years old or something, right? And so I think he was 18. He was it was sort of historic in that regard. And I was sitting there thinking I was way too young to apply for the astronaut program, but I saw him and I'm like, wow, well, you want to weigh in, or, you got to weigh in if you want to wrestle. Throw your hat in the ring. And it takes years of rejection to get the astronaut program. So I said, well, heck, if it takes years of rejection, let's start the clock. Let's start projecting right now. I was inspired by him, Henry, and so that inspiration came from guys wrestling, having no idea of the impact they were having on not a kid at this point. I was a, grown man, finished a PhD. So that got me into that, got totally rejected, but I got into some other things, learned how to fly, got involved with Team Alpha Male in the UFC. I was your IS pilot for a while, Chad, TJ, Lance Palmer, any Ohio guys in the room. Had a really good time. It was a lot of fun. And at the end of one of these flights, Uriah said, hey, that's pretty cool. Can we do this more often? And I said, well, yeah, anytime you want. I just can't fly in certain weather conditions because I just got my private pilot license. He said, well, how about I buy a plane and pay for your training? I said, sweet. It's pretty awesome. But I was just about to finish my PhD that I had kind of put off a little bit to finish this flight school. And I turned him down. And I said, no. I said, I kind of want to do this astronaut thing. I need to finish the PhD in neuroscience. I need to be serious about that element. And I gave up one really cool dream of continuing to wrestle and fight with these UFC guys. This is right when you had the championship fight with Dominic Cruz. We were in all the extra shots for the UFC countdown. I was actually running with Chad a lot in the background of those shots. I gave that up because I really wanted to continue to focus on that dream because these things take a long time. So from there, that kind of led to where I got to meet a few of you guys here at the Rio camp, 2016, and I got inspired for you guys again. So it was actually during a lunch break during that camp where Matt and I were sitting having coffee at his house, and we both got a call from NASA where they are asking for my transcripts and my resume and asking him for a reference form. And I think it went to your spam account, actually. We had to sort that out a little bit. But, so from that, yeah, right, I was really sweating. Matt, I was calling him phone, you got to check your spam account, man. He's like, all right, I found it. So I ended up failing that year, right? I didn't get selected, but I got pretty close. I got to interview that year, and I got inspired from what you guys were doing to train for Rio. I got to come here and see how you guys are doing. That extra work, that iron sharpening iron, just the mentality, that discipline helped me to get on track. And so I failed there. And this is actually a picture of, if you guys know Morgan Flaherty, after the U.S. Open, he was throwing me on my head in the California desert. So, every now and then we get thrown on our head, but we get back up. And we started this series now that I've been working on. I've shared it. We went from 2016. The next year I got picked up, after failing for the astronaut gig, I got picked up to be a fake astronaut in this program I'm going to explain, HERA, where we simulated a trip to Mars, locked up for 45 days in a space capsule with no contact with the outside world. That built an opportunity then for me to be a scientist on this most recent mission, NEEMO. And then the idea is that in 2020, we start hopefully a selection cycle again because you and I, we work in the same step in that we have about 4 years of 2008, 2012, 16, and 2020. So Beijing, London, Rio, and Tokyo. It takes 4 years to do what we're trying to do. And so I've been training since you guys inspired me with the Rio camp for this next cycle coming up, and it takes 4 years to train. I learned from you guys. That discipline and focus and plan has kind of looked at that trajectory. So these are a couple of our mission symbols. I'll show you, and I'll give you some patches and stickers after that, after we're done, if you guys are interested. But that's me at the actual, this is the capsule we lived in the background, I'll show you. But I was there, and not forget you guys, this is actually during, I think, the Paris games, and I was pulling for you guys with my USA Wrestling gear. So, you know, definitely keep an eye out how you guys are doing, and got to keep that training up that, you know, it was like wrestling, checking your weight every morning. You have diet restrictions, nutrition studies, and workouts every day and training. I was really happy because there were no cars in there. So, you know, take what you can get, right? And then this is a shot just from the last mission. This is not me, but this is one of the astronauts. It's Jessica Watkins from NASA. But this is what they're doing, and we're studying them cognitively, psychologically, and understanding their teamwork as they're doing these 5-hour operations on the bottom of the ocean floor. So, kind of circle around, and that's kind of the idea. It took way too long to introduce myself than I planned, but we talked a lot more about Illinois wrestling and Jersey wrestling, so try to throw you guys a bone. But this is inspired a lot by you guys, so starting from that journey idea, definitely don't stop believing or stop working either, because you know, it can happen, and you guys are the ones who showed me that it can happen and gave me the inspiration when I was down at different points of rejection. So, let's jump right into it then. In 1959, the unknown systems for space exploration was machined. It was mechanical, it was engineering, it was rocketry. So what we did is we found 7 of the world's best mechanical engineers and test pilots to go up and test our mechanical engineering. It was famously known as the Mercury 7. John Glenn was in there. Scott Carpenter, everybody. So famous dudes, first space flights, first orbits. And what was also happening in 1959 is there was this psychologist who was studying learning and memory, which is actually what I happen to study. This is B.F. Skinner. Maybe some of you guys might remember that from some classes. And what we did not do in 1959 when we were testing out the mechanical systems with mechanical engineers was send this psychologist up there to see what he thought. But, as it currently stands, we're landing rockets on Mars now. We've got Mars rovers, we've been to the moon, we're hopefully going back. And in 2019, the unknown systems are no longer mechanical, they're human. And so this is where the psychology, the neuroscience comes into play. And this is where these missions focus that we're now developing, because we need to understand the humans if we're going to succeed with the mechanical side of getting Mars and beyond in the universe. And so the idea for this is basically introducing, like, why is teamwork so important for these missions? Why is NASA picked up and investing into these things and studying these big psychology studies? And it's because teamwork is really important and cognition is really important. How do we think about things? How do we get along with each other as a team? Because this is actually a picture from Johnson Space Center. This is the trajectory that we're planning going from Earth to the Moon to Mars. And so you can kind of visualize the system like this. We're all here on Earth, right? The idea is that we want to get here, go to Mars. But we'd also kind of like to do this thing of come home. Right? A couple people out there want to take a one-way trip. They're not the people you want sent. You know, so the biggest challenge, though, is your team must survive each other for 3 years in a small capsule. Right? So imagine your 3 closest family members, your 3 favorite teammates. Yeah. And now imagine you're taking a summer road trip in a camper, and, you know, you can't get out of the camper for 3 months. Yeah, like when you stop for gas, you can't go get fresh air and take a pee. You can't leave the camper. Your 3 closest friends, family, the people you love. Yeah, man. You can't leave. You can't leave the pee. You got to pee inside. Hold it, man. Discipline, man. No, but like on a road trip, you know, you get out to pee when you get gas. You got to pee in the capsule, and, you know, container or whatever. But you can't do that. You can't get outside. So even your closest friends, family, you're going to get on each other's nerves, right? And so that can be a real big problem and a real big challenge, and that's what we have to understand. And that's what these missions are that we were on to study. So we need to understand what makes good teamwork, what takes really good teamwork and breaks it down into failures, right? Because we're already selecting good, you know, team-oriented astronauts, but there's failures, and we fail to get along with each other. And we need to get that right, where the rockets will not say, hey, I might press the wrong button and go to a different, you know, go a different direction, blow it up on accident.
Is it round trip?
Or is it 3 years there and 3 years back?
3 years about round trip.
Okay, cool. I'm not saying six.
That was literally my question to him.
Yeah.
How long is our vacation stay on Mars?
It's about 1.2 and 1.2 on the trip, so that's 2.4, so it's about 0.6 of a year, so about 7 months on Mars, approximately, right? I mean,
Nice.
maybe you're so sick of each other when you get there, you make it like a week stay, you turn around, but. So anyways, yeah, so this is the idea. This is what we got to do, right? This is our mission. Should we choose to accept it? Because, you guys seen Interstellar?
Yeah.
All right, so this is kind of the scene from that. Spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't seen it. It's been years, so I'm just going to tell you what happened. So these are two astronauts. This is basically Matt Damon and Matt McConaughey. And one's this brilliant Dr. Mars. They're having a big fight, battle royale. It's about to go down on Mars. They're about to mess each other up pretty bad, and one of them dies, explodes a bunch of stuff, kills a bunch of other people. It's pretty much the worst environment imaginable, right? That's what we need to prevent. We need to prevent a full team breakdown. Whether it's 2 people or 6 people, we need to prevent that from happening because we get in each other's nerves, things happen, and we got to figure out how we prevent that. So we're looking at that because when we go to Mars, our rockets are going to work, but it's us who are going to fail. And so these teamwork fails can be catastrophic. And cognition failures, if you're in a spaceship, you're flying, you lose attention, you forget something in your memory, you press the wrong button, you forget to press any buttons. It can have a seriously detrimental effect, not just in spaceships, but in any other operational environment. Military guys, you guys probably know this. You're in a tank, you're in a plane. These cognition errors can be catastrophic, as can the teamwork stuff in remote bases. So that brings us to our mission, HERA. What is it? Human Exploration Research Analog. This is an Earth-based facility where we test humans using scenarios that are analogous to space. This is our capsule. And this is our team. I'll introduce them in just a little bit, but we are sort of the test pilots for the human mind. And so we're their guinea pigs. We're their little research monkeys. And we're testing everything. Teamwork, cohesion, nutrition, sleep, exercise, particularly psychology, neuroscience, medicine, microbiology, botany, engineering, but we get to fly flight simulators, do virtual reality asteroid landings. It's really cool. It's basically like, summer camp for scientists. It's awesome, yeah.
About how much does it cost to train one astronaut?
$millions. Yeah. You got the money, honey. I got the time. Yeah. And I think Adam worked at helping to build some of these analogs with some of his projects at Michigan. So, it's pretty cool stuff. So it's a big team, right? They'll kind of come back to this idea. There's teams of people at Michigan. This is also built in part from Wisconsin. There's people, college students, helping to contribute to this. And so this is our habitat. We call it the Hab. There's a little Wisconsin badger there. Some of the engineering teams that built that. Now, the thing about this Hab is it's very small. It's about 600 square feet, so it's way too tiny for big egos. And that's one of the things that I really learned. And so part of the journey of how I got here. Like I said, I missed astronaut selection by a little bit. I was a little bummed, but you get over it. And I sent an application in that somebody told me for this program, and I didn't really know anything about it. I sent it in, and they called me a little while later and said, "You got one of the best resumes we've ever seen. This is really cool. We want to call you here today from Johnson Space Center and let you know that you're never going to do this mission, ever. Like permanently rejected." Okay. Yeah. I was like, thanks. And I said, ma'am, like, what seems to be the problem here? Like, why? She's like, well, it's a big psychology study. We're studying a lot of learning, memory, psychology, the mind and brain. It's actually too close of an overlap of what you do professionally, and we think you're not naive enough to be a subject to test. And they were right. I definitely ended up knowing a lot more about the studies, experiments than the other people did, but I'll circle back to that has actually ended up being a good thing because I was able to help test that system out a little bit better. But they said no, and I said, ma'am, I think there's some mistake. I'm not nearly half as smart as my resume seems. You can ask any of my friends. And so we laughed a little bit, and she's like, all right, well, we always need backup, so we'll keep you in mind, like, on the bottom string. And I'm like, great, that's where I live. Like, Sweet, like I'm happy with that. Like let's do that. So we kept in there, right? And I kept getting called, and ended up getting called to be ultimately a backup for the mission. And when they called, I was on a research expedition, actually diving in Grenada, which is off the coast of Venezuela, this tropical Caribbean island. And they said, you know, they had been stringing me along essentially at that point, thinking where I thought I was going to be the prime crew, varsity. You know, it's a little cocky, a little sure of myself. You know, I was feeling pretty good. You know, I've been pretty accomplished by this point. Had a really close call with the astronaut program. I'm feeling like pretty qualified. And they're like, yeah, we finally get you in. You're a backup. And like for about 5 minutes, my ego was like crying on the inside. Because, you know, I was like, what the heck, man? I spent 6 months training for this, like getting everything ready. I shut my whole laboratory down, anticipating being locked up. Like there's a lot that actually went into preparation. And I sat there for about 5 minutes. I grabbed a mojito on the beach, and I had a really important change of attitude. And I realized that like I can't go there for me. It's not about me. I actually don't mean anything. I'm nothing, right? I kind of went back to this like D3 nobody attitude of being a backup, training the guys, you know, on my wrestling. You know, one of the guys made All-American for a couple years with us. Just made a habit of beating up Lomir's guys as often as he could, because we really liked beating up Lomir's guys. And when he dropped out of school after making All-American, enlisted in the Army, went in the 82nd, walked on the 82nd Airborne, walked on the Army team, and then beat Oscar Wood. He's a really good wrestler. He beat the crap out of me for 4 years. Tore my rotator cuffs. I got one takedown on him in 4 years. I still remember it. You know, but I took that attitude of like, I'm here to get beat on and to help the other team. And I said, let's put that ego aside. 5 minutes later, that mojito helped a little bit. I said, game on, let's do this. Happy to serve the team any way I can. And that fundamental shift in attitude changed everything. Because now I show up to this mission knowing that it's way too small for big egos. And here's the other thing. They wouldn't need a backup unless they thought they might have to replace somebody. So I was very sensitive to this idea of like, I can't go there and step on people's toes. Very delicate team dynamic, right? You don't want to be like the big ego overshadowing people. And so I said, what can I do to have the smallest footprint possible? And it ended up being a really useful strategy. So took these ideas of checking the ego, thinking of other people's first, and being patient, humble, and kind. This is our team. We're walking into the big hangar where the habitat is. And on short notice, right before the mission was about to start, we had been training for 2 weeks really intensively, 8 to 8 each day. And I had to do everybody's job also. So I was training to replace any of the 4 crew members. You know, pilot, flight engineer, mission specialist 1, mission specialist 2. I'd learned everybody's job, and nobody wanted to train me because I was back. So they got half training because they need to focus on the varsity, right? And so, you know, but I had this attitude from, you know, being a training partner in wrestling. You guys all know this. You guys know how important those training partners are. And they asked at one point, they needed to replace a crew member. They had bad blood work right before the mission was about to go. And they said, we can't run this mission with 3 people. All of our work, these millions of dollars prepped, goes down the drain unless you can step in and help. And so that attitude of staying humble, checking the ego, not creating any problems with the team, helped to make a really good vibe with everyone to where we were able to integrate seamlessly and fill that spot on short notice. And needless to say, I was really excited. So that was a pretty cool thing because I went from basically sitting on the sidelines, you know, to getting called up by the coach and being, you know, told it's go time. And so now I got the flight suit. I was all excited. Yeah. I was like, yeah. So like, you know, I remember the first time I got called up to go varsity in Illinois. I was actually going against Herb's team, Conan, one of our big rivals. And I remember, you know, you put that varsity, you know, the jacket on. It was really fun and really exciting. And looking back, I did an interview with my college who asked what was one of the most important lessons our college taught you, you know, that you picked up from college. And so the quote I had, I said, was I was a walk-on athlete and a backup on the TCJ wrestling team. So the first time in my life, I was not the captain or the leader or the best on the team, but in fact, I started off as the worst. So when I started doing well later on, I got hit by a car. I had to revert to being a backup again to help the team in other ways. dispense with one's ego, be a team player that's there to serve the success of others, and be there for them. Learn to be a good follower in a supporting role. You still train to win, right? You got to approach it like you are the varsity guy, because you might get called up. But you got to be ready to be put in the match and help at any time. So I said that experience from wrestling and attitude helped me at NASA, not just for being selected as the backup member, but also having to step in on short notice. So to me, I took that directly from wrestling. And also, right, we get inspired by watching it happen to the world team, the national team people over the years. We do have guys who don't make weight or guys get hurt. People have to step in. And there's times when, us normal dudes, out in the world, we have fear, we have, we're daunted, we're intimidated by life or situations, and we're scared to move on. And to have that inspiration of an example to look at, be like, well, it worked for this guy, maybe it'll work for me. Those examples you guys send have a ripple effect across all layers of society. So this idea that I kind of mentioned with coaching kind of came back again, having this sense of urgency of sort of carpe diem, seizing the day. I figured, as much as I never thought I'd wrestle in college, I said, let's make the best of it, we'll walk on, we'll give it a shot. Never thought I'd coach. Said we got 1 year to do everything we ever wanted to do, and we gripped it and ripped it. I had a scientific discovery I made that I was actually had been sitting on for a couple of years, and I was deciding career-wise between actually enlisting in the military, and I was just out of MEPS, and then which was the processing intake for the military, and I found some data that actually proved a Nobel Prize winner's textbook wrong about something about memory. And I said, this is my one chance to make a really lasting, world-level science discovery, and held off on my sort of military ambitions because it was a one chance. So now I had one chance to run a laboratory at school, one chance to be in HERA, and we'll ended up having one chance to get in this NEEMO mission, and we approached it that this will never happen again, because you never know when you're going to get hurt. You never know when something's going to happen, and so you guys heading off into the games and the Olympics and the Worlds, you might never have another chance. And so to me, that attitude really helped to live in that moment and live that, make that moment your dream and make it happen. Because this is me interviewing and screening, and I got rejected. Then I was selected. I got kind of in the door a little bit, but I was back up. And now, of course, I got labor board and flight suit and getting ready to ingress. And so again, keeping that sort of positive attitude change from that. And I had that 5-minute temptation to have a big ego, and be grumpy, and have bad, and instead of, oh man, I got slighted, I should be bored, I should be. That change of attitude was everything. Moving to that service leadership model, thinking, how can I help the team in any way possible? Getting there early, bringing them coffee. What do they need a step ahead? Getting that ready for them. And learning that it's okay to fail, because we're practicing it here. We had, everybody here thinks it's like a 60-day job tryout to be an astronaut. Even though it's not really, but you think that way because everybody wants to do that job. So it's a lot of pressure, and you have this sense, very OCD of like, I can't fail. You're getting tested by 35 surveys and tests a day. They're watching you 24-hour camera, and you're like, there's a huge threat to your ego if you fail on anything. So nobody's taking chances. Nobody's taking risks. And when you do fail, they internalize it and feel it even worse. Those insecurities pop up. So changing the attitude to realizing when I failed in the mission on tests, this is practice. It's okay to lose a team. Like, 1,000 losses in practice is better than one in a match. That's what we're there for. So that changed in mission attitudes. That was really helpful too. So some of the lessons that I learned from that process was to prioritize the team and not to take yourself too seriously. That article I mentioned from TCJ threw me up there as a cartoon and made me, remember, you got to laugh at yourself. We're all cartoons of ourselves, one way or another. Dispense with one's ego, be a team player, serve the others, be there for the other team members. How can I look ahead to find out what they might need to succeed on what they need to do, right? Which is more important than what I need to do. And, to think of them first before my own, kind of led to these ideas of like mindset being one, we're not that important. I'm certainly not that important. And the team is more important than me. Like I said, attitude, our interests, needs, and preferences don't matter as much as others. And again, prepare. Always be ready to take your job seriously, but don't take yourself seriously. Some of the things that it reminded me of. It all went back to getting my ass kicked at TCNJ and high school and everything else, because that's what it's like. You guys are probably all the studs and the stars winning the nationals, but like us guys who are like practice partners, like helping. That was the attitude I took. It was like, what can I do to make these guys go win titles? And it really helped, because if we take that forward, you're really making some quality contributions, and you're the people they want to call up when an opportunity opens. And so that led us onto the team. We had a really great team. Introduced you to a couple of the people. This is Dr. Shelly Cazares. She grew up outside of Bakersfield, got an undergraduate engineering degree from MIT, then a PhD in engineering from Oxford, and then as an engineer from the Pentagon. Really great stuff. Yeah, she's pretty gnarly. Commander Paul Haugen, he was the commander of our mission. He grew up in Minnesota and got an undergrad in engineering, and then he was a flight engineer for the T-38s, which is the astronaut fighter jet trainer planes. Pretty much badass. He completely revamped those planes' cockpit systems. And then on the side, while he was homeschooling his 4 kids with his wife, he also got a PhD in biomedical engineering at Rice. So, it's a pretty awesome dude. And then Reinhold Polvladis was just incredible. He has a master's in engineering from Arizona State, and he runs what's called the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, which is a satellite that circles around the moon. It takes tens of thousands of digital photographs of the moon's surface, then he reconstructs them digitally and makes these scientific discoveries about the moon's surface. He actually did a podcast with Matt, and he's now actually doing a second analog where he's locked up for 4 months in Russia with cosmonauts in Moscow. So he's a baller. He should be probably an astronaut in the future and probably walk on the moon's surface because he is an expert of the moon's surface. Really awesome dudes. And one thing I should note is that wrestling really helped me integrate with these guys because it was like going to summer camp. Like, I was a really big sort of autistic science nerd in like junior high and high school. I wasn't very cool, and like still not very cool. But in college, I learned from the wrestling guys like how to have fun, how to joke around, how to mess with each other, and that made the mission go a lot. What? Yeah, right. And so like we had a really good time with these guys, and having that teamwork experience from wrestling really helped. So there was a bigger team beyond the team, and that's something that I like to emphasize too, which is that mission control, the other scientists, incredible staff, there is a much bigger team. We're only 4 people, but we think we're the team in the mission. There is such a bigger team, the people who are coordinating our flights, scheduling our hotel rooms, doing everything to keep us afloat. And it turns out our mission had an emergency abort. We had emergency evacuation. We were in the middle of Hurricane Harvey, and the entire city of Houston was underwater. And we had a huge team that basically came in and rescued us, took care of us, looked after us while their houses were underwater, their cars were underwater. They're still coming to work and putting us first. And that underscored for us that we're not really the team. We're a tiny cog in the big wheel of the team. And I learned a lot from that because it's easy to think that we're the only guy out there on the mat because nobody else comes away with a black eye. It's only our hand that's raised, but there really is a much bigger team of people who are committed in supporting you and supporting us in these efforts. And so this is part of that team. They had a big ingress ceremony. This is us getting ready to go, a little bit of cake, and we're getting ready to go. We got a final countdown here. The clock comes down to 0, and we go in there. They have the ceremony. Now, I don't know how many of you guys have dabbled with MMA or fights, but I know in wrestling, we all get to do our walkout for the match sometimes, and that's been a lot of fun. And so this was something really cool for me because I didn't get to do a lot of those walkouts in college. But now we got to do a walkout for an actual space mission, and because it's fake, right, we can have some fun. On a real rocket launch, you got to be all serious because you could die. So this is really fun because for our walkout, they had this final countdown of the clock. While if any of you guys, 80s hair rock, they actually played the final countdown. So, it's pretty fun, and you can see the big team around us of all the engineers.
What's that? Is that it's from Castaway the Ball?
Yeah, Wilson. Yeah, we gotta have fun.
No, that's a hand fruit down there.
Yeah. So they had a nice little thing, got to do a walkout. It was fun. I was scared to death because, I was like, I'm about to get locked up, and I was planning on going home 5 days ago. So I was like, it's like crap. hurry up and get in here. So I was pretty tired. They sent us off, and you can see in 1 minute, they'll pan you, and you'll see this big whole team that's actually out there supporting us. And they're there 365 days a year. They run all these missions all the time. We're there for a couple months. This is really their mission. It's their team. We're just their little, like, temporary visitors. And back there is my brother who came out. He wouldn't miss a chance to see his big brother get locked up. So anyways, that's Paul and Reinhold doing the flight simulators and the lunar landers. It's really cool. And then Shelley and I were the mission specialists, and we would do these what we call extravehicular activities, or EVAs. So we got virtual reality. We're wearing the Oculus Rift, and we're going down, and like I'm green, she's red. So they use lasers back here, and they're controlling lasers on here to points. You got Wilson there making sure they're on track. And they're going to send us where we need to go. We're going to do all these procedures for hours. These big, long operations. You're actually pretty tired at the end of it. And then we want to see how do we perform on these cognitive tests and surveys when we're fatigued. Because that's, the point of this understanding. And so we're doing that. Big teamwork within ourselves, because we need to have really good communication on the radios, make sure we've confirmed that I heard what you meant to say, not what you wanted to say, and et cetera, et cetera. So we really practiced that, and it was very good. It was a sleep deprivation study on top of it, so we weren't allowed to sleep till 2 a.m. every night, and then we were blasted music at 7 a.m. every day. And I work with a lot of other fighter pilots or other military guys, and like everybody's like, oh well, that's not so bad. 5 hours is pretty good. And everybody's got an ego in the room, right? And they're like, and I'm like, yeah, but when you do that chronically for 45 days, and the catcher was we weren't allowed to steal off a nap. That was really the catch. 5 hours isn't that bad. You can actually manage that. But when you could sneak off a few naps or two here and there is when you start wailing down. And you talk about ego again, like they are asking us, how you doing? Are you guys good? We're like, yeah, grip and rip it. We're good. 100%. But then you test us on like capturing the SpaceX Dragon capsule and you can see our success rates just started going down. So we felt good. Our ego was like riding high, but man, were we screwing up. And so that's pretty pervasive effect of sleep, man. It showed me how important it was, and now I actually try to get to sleep because I saw how bad we were messing up. Another big thing we're doing, taking a lot of psychological surveys do 25 to 35 surveys a day for hours and hours and hours. It sounds like you guys got a couple surveys to do too. I feel you. I know what that's like. But it is important to do right. As a scientist, I have to get those surveys too, and we rely on good, accurate data. And really importantly, we're constantly evaluating not just ourselves, but constantly evaluating our team. How is our team working? Is anything going wrong? What can we be doing better? And that was what we call metacognition. Which is thinking about thinking, right? So we're thinking about how are we doing. And that helped to self-reflect a lot, give us self-awareness that helped us to identify weak points that were happening so that we can kind of fix it. So it was very helpful. Like I said, we're on reality TV, so we have all of our cameras 24/7, all the time, and that puts you on edge at first, right? Like you're not yourself, you're anxious, insecure, you got your ego coming up, and but it was a really good reminder that we had to maintain that perpetual professionalism. People are watching, like you guys don't know who you're inspiring. Kids, adults, all sorts of people are going through all sorts of things in life. Good, bad, whatever. They have their own hills and matches to fight. And they sometimes can be really inspired by seeing how do you guys handle your victories and failures. Like you guys have a big ambassador role, certainly on me and to other people. It's a big deal, man. And so getting over that fear of failure of being on camera to where we just didn't care anymore. That was important. Because once we realized that they're not testing us, we're testing the mission for them, helped us to open up, take those offensive shots, not worry about losing, and actually make the mission go better. Because we were one big team. This is actually from the NEEMO mission underwater. We just came back as the boat going out to the dive site. These are the astronauts there from Europe and NASA. And you see we're a big team. This is mission control. There's everyone's schedule up here. We're constantly monitoring, and everyone has to work together. But that that brings responsibilities on each other too. Like, you know, we do have responsibilities to be good team members to the other people, because it could screw up somebody else's science study that they spent years building and millions of dollars developing if I just start hitting any button on my survey. You know, and so realizing that we had that obligation and duty, even though we didn't want to follow through on it, was helpful. And we were reminded we had morning briefings and meetings every day where we get on the same path and map out what's going to happen, where do we want to be, and how do we need to get there. So that communication and planning really helped to work together. But we also had a lot of fun. You know, it was the best part of the mission. Just screwing around, playing jokes at each other. It was like being in, honestly, I felt like I was in my college wrestling house. It was awesome. It was really, really fun, and we were very good for that. You know, there's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And that's something that was just dialed into us exceptionally well, because we had to work together. And we worked well together because of that. We had good team camaraderie, got to screw around, had a lot of jokes, and it kind of made me self-reflect, because we're asked on these surveys and questions, what made us a good team? This is what NASA wants to know. What went wrong, what went right? And the first thing is we had a lot of fun, right? Like, that definitely helps. Nobody wants to be on an overseas trip with a bunch of, you know, cranky teammates and nobody's having fun. You're just trying to get home, man. That's no fun. But we had a good time. Wilson helped with that. But we also had some shared values, right? So that really helped to build our cohesion, because, you know, people say a lot of times that, like, diversity is our strength. But in that case, we kind of looked at it the opposite. We said diversity wasn't our strength. It's what we share together that gives us our strength, because we're really similar with what we share, and we still have differences. So we need the stuff we share to overcome the differences. And that sort of foundation that we have together is what helps us overcome our natural differences, those mindsets. Basically, you know, make our team, we said our outlook was that we wanted to get rid of snark, get rid of negativity, and look at the positive in everything. And that helped us to get over stuff. So that shared worldview was something that was critical. And the thing that really came about to me was looking at things as opportunities instead of obligations. And so I was having a really difficult time in the mission, and I was about to become like that one like really bad team member. Because I was cranky, I was tired, and I was just in bad mindset. And I was having a bad attitude because I was failing on certain tasks. And I started realizing, what am I doing? What's going wrong here? And thinking about it, I realized that I was looking at things at that moment as an obligation. I look on the schedule, you know. I said, oh, I got to do this today. Oh, we got to go do this. Oh, I got to go do this 30-minute workout today. I got to do this. And I realized, first of all, we're locked up the same day every day. There's no surprises. What do you mean, like, I got to do this? And instead, I took the attitude that it's not an obligation, but I get to do this. I get to work. I get to go test a spaceship for NASA today. I get to do this. I get to help them figuring this out. And that changed everything and averted a near disaster in the teamwork side of the mission, because it put me on the right track and realizing that if I was failing, it wasn't me who was failing. It was a success in identifying some studies that need to be better so that we can help be the test dummies so they don't fail for the astronauts in real space. So we were a little high on our ego. We thought we were the hot shots. Why are they giving us stuff that's not working? This is, you know, get all grumpy. We're like, wait a minute. No, we're not that important. They're giving us the stuff that's not working so we can find out why it doesn't work, so we can give it to the real guys in the space station so it works for them. So that changed. Looking at things from obligation now instead of as an opportunity made all the difference. And if they get that wrong, I've been swearing to NASA ever since, in the last 2 years, they will crash these missions. If our teams don't understand that, I don't think it'll work if we get to Mars. Because we were constantly being asked, would you go on a 3-year trip to Mars with every single person? And what that made us do is, I'm being asked if Colton, Ellis, and Kamal and I are going to Mars together, and we each have an iPad and we have to fill out a survey, and I have to answer a question like, how's Ellis going to go to Mars for 3 years?
That's a good group.
Yeah, well, it is today.
One day.
Talking to me in 3 years when we're we realized they're answering that about me. So we had to realize, oh crap, am I someone that someone would really want to get locked up with for 3 years? A lot of times that answer is no, right? And like, so we had to change ourselves. We had to, so that was kind of the thing. These are some of the underwater astronauts that we just came back with. They're doing all these complex sort of teamwork stuff for 5 hours. These are real, we were doing simulated stuff. This is a real dangerous sort of life-threatening operations and missions they're doing. And some of the things that that I just came back learning from that I kind of wanted to share was there's a couple big points that I picked up from it in terms of what I call tough team traits. For 2 reasons. One, I don't always talk about these team traits because I usually give warm, fuzzy teamwork talks to college groups and stuff. But you guys are tough fellas, and these are kind of the real stuff too. That is, but it's also tough to do. These are tough things to do, but they will make for tough teams. So obviously, competence. You got to know your stuff, right? If your teammate is competent and they're having a bad attitude, we can get over that because we know that they're at least good at what they're doing, right? And we can overcome someone with a bad ego if they're pretty good, right? We can work with that, right? And if you're not competent, we can fix that. We can train you. If you have a really good attitude, but you're not competent, we can make you competent. Accountability, man. Being accountable, but importantly, holding each other responsible. This was one of the toughest things in our mission. I'll admit that we did not always do a good job of it because we were scared. We were scared of being locked up forever, and if you really hold people accountable sometimes, we were worried, can they take that? And will that ruin the mission? We want to build this teamwork. And that's something that we did not do well enough. But, it was important enough that looking back, I wish we did it better. We were a little too scared. But it reminded me of essentially this next level. Kurt, you got to be brave enough to tell the truth and talk to people. Right? So we live in a modern society where our leaders are supposed to, they live on popularity. But, the best leaders can't care if they're popular. If you believe in the vision and you believe in your values and what you're trying to help that team achieve, that sometimes doesn't mean being popular. And you guys are parents, you guys know this, right? You can't give that candy all day. Sometimes vegetables is what we need. And so that takes courage as a parent. It takes courage as a teammate. It takes courage as a leader. And that kind of led to the next thing of communicating, right? So we always think about communicating in a considerate way to speak. But for us, when you're locked up and you can't escape, you can't fire the person, and they can't quit, it's really important to be a really good listener in the communication. Because there are times when teammates were having a hard time, and I was mad because maybe they were messing up. It was creating a problem, right? And I had to learn then how to be a better listener and really hear what they're saying. What are they going through that's making it so hard for them? And how do I wait to say something back? By thinking about how could they receive this? How might this make it worse? What's going through their head that I can be more adjustable to? Because it takes resilience to be a good listener. You got to hear what someone's saying. Maybe they're going off on you. Maybe they're mad about something you're doing. But man, that next, you want to level up in maturity, be the next level man you can be. Being resilient to not taking offense, but being able to take a joke. That's not so common these days in society. Right? We're very easily offended society. That doesn't really work very well in a spaceship. It doesn't work very good in a any kind of unit that you're going to work in. You need to do a good cohesion. Of course, sacrificing for the teammate, carrying others when they need it, but also I was struggling so many times where I learned the best thing I could do was ask for help. I say, guys, I'm dragging ass today. It really hurt me. I'm tired. I need help on this. Can you do this? And they're like, oh, yeah, sure. We all see when each other struggles in practice. They can't hide it from us, right? When somebody's having a bad day, you just want them to be like, at least acknowledge it. Be like, all right, hey guys, I know I'm having a bad day. All right. That was huge. And seeking counsel. So we each had to find a mentor on the team and people who would help us, but also always looking as a way to mentor other people. And I use this when I teach kids or coach kids in wrestling too. The best way to grow guys up into more mature leaders is, have them go to practice and teach a couple kids practices. Let them learn how to practice mentoring other kids and realize, oh yes, this stuff is really important. Maybe I should do that better when I'm training too. so enjoying the mission, having fun, and having integrity, because being trustable allowed us to open up, allowed us to be honest with each other, and allowed us to take those chances. So you think about wrestling analogies, right? You wrestle all, timid, defensive, conservative. You're not going to open up and score. You got to have integrity in that. Knowing that we're doing these things right gave us the integrity so that we can be honest. That frees us up to take the chances, take the risks, to go on offense that ends up allowing us to score. And that attitude is everything. Looking at the glass being half full, avoiding that toxic elements, things like snark, negativity, sarcasm. That stuff really festers in these confined environments. And having that sort of what I call a gas tank for resiliency. Because you're not going to have sleep, you're going to have high stress, and fatigue makes cowards of us all. You guys are some of the best elite athletes we have. And you guys probably know this in your competitors and people domestically and internationally. You can beat a lot of guys with better talent if you have a better gas tank for being fatigued. For sleeping in bad conditions and not having hot showers. If you have better emotional resilience to that, you can beat all sorts of better guys. You hope that they don't beat you. So that stuff was easier said than done. It's not very easy at all. And it kind of gave me the idea that we want to get to Mars, but if we're going to complain, it's not going to make the spaceship go any faster. It just won't. It makes the trip go longer because you're miserable. So it was really helpful for us taking this idea of do you have to do something or do you get to do something by looking at opportunities instead of obligations. So that was really important. And these are kind of some things that I wrote down in my journal at the time. And looking back, that ended up being really good, which was be relentlessly happy. Don't let the small frustrations get the best of you. Practice good communication. And really important, say the words I'm sorry when it's needed. But man, it was also really helpful to say it ahead of time because you got to, I had to apologize all the time for times I'm screwing up. But man, the second part of that was I had to grow to be a bigger man when the people would apologize to me. When they were screwing up, I had to forgive them. There are times when you're steamed, you're pissed, right? People might say you're sorry, and you're like, yeah, whatever. But you don't have time to go out and get some fresh air and come back. We had to level up and kind of be that bigger man, and that was a really good growth opportunity to find the best in those situations, the reason to smile, the ways to laugh, and serve the other members of the team. And is this stuff any different than going to Baku and taking a 12-hour bus ride with chickens and the stuff that you guys got to do in these remote areas? So to me that was really cool, and because they're designed to stress your team. They're trying to understand this stuff. You want to learn how to stay steady, stable, calm, confident, focused. These are things that I was reading Steve Frazier write in his newsletters when I was a junior high kid. Really helped me remember this stuff. I was like, wow, that's really cool. So you guys never know how you might influence people, kids who look up to you. To be unshakable by those events. I think Steve was writing about this, like I said, when I was in junior high school, about when you're down by 3 points in the max. He's like, be unshakable and focus on that to practice that self-awareness. And this is something my student picked up. I put this on a slide one time in class, and I said, this is a model that I kind of developed, which is I am nothing, right? I'm a D3 nobody. I should be at the bottom. I mean nothing. I'm here to serve the team. The team is more important than me. The mission is more important than the team, right? And I said, so always put others first. And the student raised his hand in the back of the class. He's like, you screwed it up. And I'm like, how did I screw it up? He's like, well, you have a typo. It doesn't say always put others first. I said, oh, I'll fix that. And he's like, no. It works. Leave it that way because you literally put others first. So I kept the error, and it gave me this idea, right? Talking to you guys as athletes, right? What do we want to do as athletes and lifting and to be strong, right? You do a bunch of pull-ups, you get that athletic frame, right? That V-shaped frame, and that's kind of what this is, right? So it kind of looks like that, right? You want to be strong as an individual, as a man, as a team, as a program, right? You need this sort of inverted triangle, right?
I mean, not everybody needs it.
Okay, I'm looking at you, Robbie.
Take the offense to this one, all right? Everybody needs an inverted triangle.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can hear it like a round circle.
like, think what happens if we turn this triangle. If you put yourself on top of the triangle, right? If you put this upside down where you're first, the team second, and the mission's, you're going to have that invert. You just got this, like, fat office working blob of, like, what we were opposite, what we don't want to do, right? And so I thought that was a kind of a cool thing for athletes to think about, because I think it puts us in the right frame. Just sort of wrapping it up here, when we're in these isolation capsules, we learn a lot about ourselves and others. One thing I learned was be more patient as a person, because we have more peace tolerance and patience about the situation. Again, think you guys on a long bus ride, long flight after a long-term or training group. That's going to really help the situation, because you can succeed in being selfless, finding solutions instead of trying to escape, because we can't escape. And really, really learning how to reflect always about what am I doing right now? How could this accidentally be affecting someone else that I'm not even thinking about? We don't think about that normally because we don't have to. These situations really make us do that. And if we can do that a little bit better on Earth, we might never want to leave it. So we came away with that sort of bigger view from these isolation missions, and it reminded of what the astronauts said when they came back from the moon. So you guys know who Frank Borman is? You do? Yeah, he's kind of a badass, right? Yeah. So Frank Borman, everybody thinks about Neil Armstrong landing on the moon. Coming up, I think next week is the 50th anniversary on July 20th. But Armstrong only got to the moon because there were pioneers who went there before him. Frank Borman launched with it was Bill Anders and Jim Lovell, who later did Apollo 13, on the first flight to the moon on a rocket. No one was really sure they were coming back. The thought was maybe we can use gravity to slingshot and come back home. Maybe. They launched. We can talk about the courage, the bravery. And when they came back around the moon, they saw the Earth for the first time, whole. And he said, when you finally look up at the moon, looking back on Earth, all those differences and nationalistic traits are pretty well going to blend. You're going to get a concept that maybe this really is one world. Why the hell can't we live together like decent people? And that's kind of that bigger picture that we came away with, being locked up in that. And to me, it was kind of like wrestling too. Like we compete against other nations, but we have a brotherhood of wrestling after the tournament's over too. So I thought that was really good. And these are kind of the take-home points from that stuff that we learned. Is be good to people, forgive them when they're not good to you. It's really important. You got to forgive them when they're not good to you, because you're going to be miserable if not. Talk less, listen more. Have a good attitude, avoiding snark, selfishness, complaining, gossip, politics, negative attitude. All that stuff is toxic when you're locked up. And looking at things, especially the difficult ones, opportunities instead of obligations, is really the key takeaway, because we have to constantly reflect on what we do to others around us. We can do that more on Earth. We might never want to leave it, and it'll make everything better. So we can serve those teams first, manage our egos, help the team succeed, and really find peace. And it'll bring you joy. We were locked up, and there were some bad times. We had some blowouts. It's hard. Can't talk to anybody. No Snapchat, no Twitter, no Instagram, guys. Sorry. But if we could find our inner peace, we could find a way to have joy. And if we found a way to bring the other people joy, then it would bring us peace. Especially if they're angry, if they're having a bad day. Man, that's my job now, is what can I do to bring that person joy? Because it's going to make my life more peaceful. And that was really, really helpful. I want to say thank you to my teammates at HERA and certainly at NEEMO for helping me to understand those things, because I failed at a lot of that. And I learned from them on how to do that. Certainly thank you guys, NASA's research program, the HERA team, the NEEMO team, our families and mentors and administrators. Everybody at our team or on the team was really influential, because we can't do it alone. Certainly thank you to USA Wrestling. You guys do a great job inspiring generations of kids and adults, and you just don't know the impact you're going to have, whether it's on a business, a kid, science, you just never know. It's happening. I promise you it's happening, and you don't know that. And so these are our two patches and symbols. I got some of them over here. If you guys want them when you're done, you can have them. But you know, thank you to Greco. That's Morgan. He's not here. He's a buddy of mine from Davis. You guys know him. He trains you guys here. And we're actually trying to help feature you guys. I'm setting up with some documentarians to try to create some features for you guys in the future, getting ready for Tokyo. Some of you guys he's already interviewed at the U.S. Open. Tracy, Kamal, I think you guys have talked with him a little bit. And this is Morgan doing some B-roll footage and actually tossing me on my head again. So trying to get back to the program, get you guys some features, get you guys some press and some promo, and you know, thank you guys. And yeah, yeah, man. Yeah, was it a bad throw or something? No. Okay. Yeah. So, anyways, that's what I had. Sorry, I went a little bit longer. But I really appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Rick. That was excellent. I mean, some of those things that we came up with last summer are the same things that are going to. I mean, these were the 5 areas that we wanted to improve as a team, and I can see the improvement. I can see we're growing in these areas, and how important that image and professional is. Because when he was a kid, he was looking up the USA Wrestling athletes, and the communication part is key, and it's that humility of looking out for each other, and you know, just like today, Tracy's texting me, I slept in, so you know, let's hold him accountable, but at the same time, like, it's not the end of the world, but I think it would have been valuable for him to be here, and hopefully he's going to come. Lorraine is here. She would like autographs from each of the world team members. I'll probably just have Muhammad walk over with the everybody else, all our training partners. If you're a world team member, what's it going to take?